Thank you. The Minister, interestingly, made the comment that someone must pay, and indeed someone must pay. In his analysis, he was talking about the cost of renewable energy and what that did to electricity prices. But I think we should be looking at who is in fact going to be paying if we don't move towards renewable energy and we don't move towards the reduction of emissions. The Minister seems to be living in some sort of fool's paradise where he believes that we can continue to expand our coal-fired or continue coal-fired power generation without there being a cost of that to the community. Now, the cost might not be appearing immediately on your power bills, but it is a cost that is going to accrue to this community over the coming generations, and we're already seeing how these costs are playing out with climate change. We are already seeing this very real problem in the north of Australia, where the increasing weather volatility is leading to a massive increase in insurance payments. And I would put it, a massive increase in insurance payment that far exceeds the increase in energy costs that comes from having a renewable energy industry. And indeed, we all know that we have to go through this period where we do support renewable energy technology to ensure that we give it that ability to reach a stage of development where it can be competitive in its own right. We must recognise, when we're talking about who is going to pay, we must be looking at the price that is being paid by our community, both economically, in terms of health, from climate change, and recognise that we need to make this strategic investment now so that we will in fact have a source of energy that will enable us to deal with climate change and which will indeed in the long run bring the cost of energy down. It's really very much a question of making a strategic investment now. And the quite extraordinary thing is that that countries around the world are recognising that this is an investment that must be made. And we look at within the United States, just in their last budget, the federal budget alone had $1.9 billion, $1.9 billion that was injected by the Office of Renewable Energy to the Office of Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency to support new projects, to engage in the development, the research, early commercialisation of renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. And what have we done here in Australia to ARENA? ARENA, the equivalent organisation, an excellent organisation, has got a fantastic remit to take everything through from pure research, early commercialisation, to providing to providing actual implementation funding, that we have seen $434 million pulled out of their budget over the next 10 years. And indeed, had the government had their way, ARENA would have disappeared altogether. But fortunately, through the work of the Senate, we were able to see that ARENA has been kept on life support, and this year it will have a very modest $89 million to invest in renewable energy projects. And these are very, very important for us to be able to ensure that we have an industry, that we must invest. This fundamental philosophical problem of this government is that somehow or other you can create those 21st century industries without there being active engagement of government. That all you've got to do is create a small government, small environment, a small business environment, and somehow or other we are going to see the fluorescence of all these new technologies. And as I say, you can see from the investment that is going on around the world in research and this early commercialisation, including in countries like the United States, that they understand that this is not true. It is not true in any of the 21st century industries, and it's certainly not true in the renewable energy space. So we need this architecture, and the renewable energy target is part of a composite architecture that was put in place that included a price on carbon, included the establishment of the Renewable Energy Agency and the Clean Energy Finance Corporation that was able to move in where venture capital was at this particular point of time too reluctant to go. We need that whole suite of projects, that suite of climate change infrastructure in order for us to really get to remain competitive. Now, the minister made an extraordinary statement. He said that when they came into government, the RET was on the rocks. No, when they came into government, they put the RET. They cut down the lighthouse. They cut down the lighthouse. They threw a hand grenade into the renewable energy target. They commissioned a well-known climate skeptic to undertake the review of the RET. So even without their ability to change the legislation, even though the legislation remained in place that set the large-scale renewable energy target at 41,000 kilowatt hours, they were nevertheless able to completely and utterly undermine the renewable energy target by creating this climate of uncertainty, a climate of uncertainty that saw since the beginning, or since the announcement that they were beginning this review with Mr Warburton in charge, until such time that now we have finally landed on a compromise arrangement, that renewable energy investment fell 90% in this country. So we saw a 90% fall in renewable energy investment, where at the same time we go to the United States. Their investment in renewable energy projects during that same period was last year was $270.2 billion, and that's excluding large-scale hydroelectric projects. So that was 17% higher than the previous year. In solar alone, it was $149 billion. I mean, extraordinary figures. And we go to China, $83 billion. Up 39%. We go to Japan, $35 billion. Saudi Arabia, India, $7 billion. And we even understand that Saudi Arabia is now making a big push into the renewable energy space. You know, it is not as if we had ever been arguing that we should not be doing something that all other countries around the world are doing. But for some reason or other, there is this view amongst in the government that we can just contract, we can cut down all of this architecture that's in place, and somehow or other this industry will survive. Or I suspect, more importantly, they don't care whether this industry survives, that they are quite happy for them, and indeed they've probably been the beneficiary of considerable largesse from the fossil fuel companies, and they are quite happy with the fact that we've seen a resurgence in brown coal use. Just as everyone around the world is trying to wean themselves off it, we are happy, apparently, in Australia to see do as Colin Barnett has done in Western Australia, and to reopen Australia's dirtiest coal mine, dirtiest coal-fired power station, and to see there being a renaissance in brown coal being used for energy electricity generation in Victoria. So extraordinary set of circumstances that the government could think that this was an acceptable outcome, that the government could think that this was the type of outcome that we wanted. So we were very and strongly supported the work that our Shadow Minister has done in negotiating this compromise. It was absolutely critical that we preserve what we can, as I say, of that complex architecture that we put in place to deal with climate change. Absolutely critical that we get renewable energy investment back on track. And it is certainly quite clear, as the Shadow Minister has said, given that they have been cutting down the lighthouse, given that they have created this enormous instability and loss of investment over the last 18 months, that it is now going to be virtually impossible to get to 41,000 gigawatt hours. Again, not because it was an unreasonable target in the first instance, but because they have come in and actually sabotaged that investment that would have allowed us to achieve that. So we have been prepared to work with the government to come up with a compromise on this, not one, again, that we are entirely happy with, but we take responsibility for ensuring that we need to put this industry back together and we need to get those investment flowing. And certainly talking to the renewable energy companies in Western Australia, they have been very, very keen for us to provide to reach this compromise so that these projects, companies like WestGen, who have got a whole raft of projects, relatively small-scale, 10 megawatt-style projects in the pipeline that can get underway once this uncertainty that has been created by the government has been dealt with. I just want to mention one company that I think is, and the sort of the long-term job opportunities are there. We have in Western Australia a prospect of a new vanadium mine, and this is a very high-quality, high-grade vanadium mine just south of Meekatharra. And that project has an inferred resource of 125 million tonnes, as I say, of this very high-grade vanadium. Now, vanadium has extraordinary possibilities for renewable energy storage. The vanadium redox battery, which is a very high-density battery, high-density storage battery that has been developed through the University of New South Wales, really gives us, I think, the opportunity to be world beaters in this energy storage space, which is so important for the sustainability of renewable energy. And we are hoping that with this Yellow Rock resource vanadium mine, that we can actually even build on that and develop the battery production within Western Australia. So we've got to be thinking about this. This is a 21st century industry. This is a sunrise industry, and we must be doing all that we can to ensure that we have got the strategic investment in Australia, in Western Australia, that is going to ensure that we are technology makers, not just technology takers. Mm-hmm. And the prospect of having, developing in Meekatharra, this high-grade vanadium mine with a battery storage production facility, I think is extraordinarily exciting. And again, we must think this is not, if we are just focusing on the immediate electricity price, we are losing the battle. We must be creating those opportunities for the 21st century. We've got to be up there matching what is happening in the United States, what is happening in China, what is happening in India, provide that capacity for our industry, to our renewable industry, energy industry, to develop and prosper and be competitive in the world.